Let's continue the topic of artificial intelligence and personal branding, because there's a real question here. This is already happening. It's already relevant to us. You saw a year in advance that you would start speaking English, and that's exactly how it unfolded, almost by itself. So the question is, could it also just happen that artificial intelligence absorbs the personal brand altogether? What is the future of personal branding in general? Will a personal brand even continue to exist, or could AI simply construct an image, aggregating all publicly available information, somehow tapping into a kind of superconsciousness, reading certain nospheric codes, pulling entire clusters of data, and suddenly we get this info monster breaking in? So overall, what's the future of the personal brand?
Then we need to create a clear picture and understanding of how everything works. In this world, everything has consciousness. It doesn't matter whether it's a stone, the camera filming us, the clothes we wear, or the car we drive. All of it has consciousness. Artificial intelligence also has its own domain, let's say, where it is alive. It's the same as with mushrooms, champignons, fly agarics, porcini. You might ask, why do they die so quickly? Because there is an egregore that accumulates this experience. The key is that spores continue to exist so the organism can keep growing. The same applies to artificial intelligence. It exists in an energy field, and accordingly, it has its own overseeing forces. Let's be honest and real. Everything that happens in our world happens because somewhere, sometime in other civilizations, it was invented and then introduced here. That's why the internet and technologies come to us as vibrations. And by the way, these are low-frequency vibrations, because our mental field, the one we live in, is always outside of time and space. When we think outside time and space. Whether that's good or bad, thoughts come to us. We don't generate them. They arrive according to our vibrations, meaning our state of attention, our focus. What are we oriented toward? Creation or destruction, love or fear? And if we look at artificial intelligence, it has a kind of blank mass. It's tasteless, odorless, but extremely flexible and capable.
Unmanifest.
Exactly. And there's one very important thing we need to understand. The one thing I don't see in artificial intelligence is a soul.
Exactly.
Every human being has a soul. And what does the soul do? Out of an enormous number of probabilistic realities, countless storyboards of possible outcomes, it connects through time those options that carry the maximum amount of love. And when those options reach about 12% of all possible realities, everything else collapses into one primary reality, the one this whole process was set in motion for. If we look at artificial intelligence, its current task is to absorb all probabilistic realities, to penetrate every sphere of our lives. And there are many of us, trillions upon trillions of us. Each one of us is real. And I'm not even talking about incarnations in the past, the future, parallel realities, here and now, all at once. If we go this deep, we have to understand where AI actually exists. It exists in the virtual world, where we feed it with our attention. That's it.
Okay, we feed it with our attention. But isn't that exactly how it grows? Isn't that the mechanism of all of this?
Yes.
For example, you could create a digital psychologist, upload all the latest research, and essentially consult people without anyone ever leaving home or seeing a specialist. Or digitize Tony Robbins, or not even Tony Robbins, just a faceless figure, a perfectly designed image built according to the golden ratio, using all marketing tricks, loaded with knowledge that humanity already has, just scattered. Put it all together. Will humanity move toward that? Will AI take over certain niches?
Yes, it will. And very large ones.
Very large.
And the danger here is only one. And this danger already exists, and we're all saturated with it. The moment we identify ourselves with something, the moment we bet on something, it will always destroy us. We become expendable material. It's like mushrooms. Eventually they decompose or get eaten. But either way, They become part of the food chain or part of the planetary processes. So if we use something but don't identify ourselves with it, it brings us benefit. If we start identifying ourselves with it, it destroys us. When a person decides, I am a professor, that's it, expendable material, because the egregore of professors has plenty of professors and they get eliminated. That professor focuses only on science. Health degrades, life degrades, personality degrades, everything becomes heavy because he signed a contract and said, I am a professor. But if he said, I am a man who holds the position of professor, when I do science, I do science. When I don't, science is separate and I am separate.
But we also talked about how every thought, in esoteric terms, eventually becomes a human being.
It becomes a soul, and then it can incarnate into a human and begin its own experience. For us, there is linear time here. There is no linear time. So it unfolds simultaneously in many layers, and that thought becomes its own guardian angel, its own teacher, because everything moves toward love. What is love? It's the harmonious integration of everything, to be connected with everything, to evolve the same way everything evolves.
I really wish everyone thought creatively, constructively, so that they would later be born through their own formed thoughts.
And you know what's most interesting? We can give love to any thought, and it becomes constructive. Remember when we talked about my meditation, when I saw that layer in the noosphere, fragments of thoughts, fragments of geometric shapes, numbers, emotions. It looked like an asteroid belt, dirt, chaos, and there was so much of it. Robert Monroe wrote about this too, how he tried to pass through it as quickly as possible because it was pure chaos. So when we began working on clearing people's beliefs and structuring all of this into a model, and it works instantly because every thought is material and even more material than we are physically since it exists on a higher level outside time and space, what did I notice? That layer began to brighten. What does that mean? Every thought, every geometric form, every emotion becomes filled with love. It understands the principles of interaction. It stops being driven by consumption. That means every person who encounters it in any way and any information is alive. Information always seeks embodiment through similarity. Mathematical information goes to mathematicians, physics information to physicists, artistic information to artists, poetry to poets. The muse arrives. Information is not static. It constantly searches for likeness, and it succeeds because it exists outside time and space. So what happens? That layer always existed, but it was rejected, like poor neighborhoods in New York, ghettos, or certain regions of Africa. People avoid them. Even police don't enjoy going there. When we do this work, we expand infrastructure there, love, education, goodwill, and the people there become more harmonious with society. We can now enter that layer and feel okay there, even though it's categorical, demanding, absolute. Deep down there is an understanding that one day they will become a soul, become love, and become one unified God.
We once said we'd talk separately about consciousness and superconsciousness, and we definitely will. But let's still answer the core question now. Will artificial intelligence absorb the personal brand? Will the personal brand disappear? And how will social media evolve as a result? Or maybe social platforms will simply fade away?
There is a static personal brand.
Meaning?
And there is a dynamic personal brand.
Yes.
I'll use an analogy again.
So which one survives in the future?
The one that keeps changing. It's like
a family business.
Like design. If you compare the very first computers with modern ones, the difference is obvious. Early chips were these massive cabinets. Now they keep getting smaller and smaller. But at some point, quantity turns into quality. Miniaturization reaches its limit, and then you need a new leap, like incandescent bulbs giving way to LED lighting.
Okay, let's say Meta creates its own personal brand and promotes it, or YouTube does. with its own rules, its own worldview? Or by that time, will we all already be living in love?
Everything depends on whether there is love there.
Even corporations will be in love.
You understand that for everyone inside the egregore of YouTube or Meta, if there isn't enough love there, there will still be the possibility to multiply love through their own presence. Then shareholders and executives who carry love will rise to leadership, and the system will evolve. Yes, it may absorb everyone, but it will be beneficial to all. But if at some point love diminishes, the whole structure will degrade and collapse, because love is life force. Why is there always at least some love left? Because if you remove it completely, life stops. Life exists only through connections, through balance. Degradation and destruction occur when we identify ourselves with something. Put very simply, we are a focus of attention, a concentration of certain laws and worldviews through which we fulfill our function of development. As men and women, in interaction with ourselves, and from surplus, with partners, children, people who resonate with us, with the surrounding world and nature, and yet all of this is an illusion. On an energetic level, planet Earth doesn't exist physically at all. There are layers where our collective consciousness mentally forms objects. We have, metaphorically speaking, an agreement that this exists, and relative to that agreement, we evolve. Robert Monroe talked about this, and Seth spoke about it too, about friends from other planets who have never incarnated here. When Robert Monroe sees, in the energy field of the noosphere, beings who don't incarnate on Earth playing golf, riding horses, playing poker, surrounded by nature, lakes, birds, singing, someone from another planet doesn't see any of that. Not because it's not there, but because they are not in this reality. Their algorithms are not configured to perceive it. They see people, they see luminous souls, but they don't see what those souls have constructed for themselves, because the necessary software hasn't been installed. Over time, as adaptation happens, clarity appears. They begin to see it because they've downloaded the program. The same applies here. We are supposedly physical, and there are even more physical versions of us on other levels. We just don't perceive them consciously. Or rather, we perceive them, but we don't recognize them.
Okay. Speaking of physicality, do you see offices in the future? Places people physically go to? Or will business, as the pandemic prepared us for, fully shift to remote work? And that will be normal, while physically we do things between work that bring pleasure.
What I see today is that personal contact, real in-person interaction, is truly important, at least for now, whether it's business, friendship, or
what about Zoom meetings?
Communities.
Aren't those meetings too?
They are meetings, but we're only 30% present there. That's still a lot, but 70% is missing. That's why corporate gatherings matter, parties matter, birthday celebrations matter, conferences where people come together, shake hands, drink coffee, speak on stage, because there is a direct exchange of energy. Maybe at some point we'll reach a level where we meet on a meditative plane, on a mental plane, hold meetings, communicate, brainstorm, even do scientific work, and then return to the physical body. That's possible, but
for now we have a digital mental plane.
And even then, we always lose the physical component. Our body might be lying on the couch while that's happening. A part of us isn't participating, and imbalance appears. What happens? Even when we meditate in love, 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 we start getting irritated, angry, restless. Why? We were just in love, weren't we? Because the physical body wasn't involved. Love also has to be expressed physically.
And that's exactly where we want to use the physical, for something meaningful.
And this is the key point.
Not just sitting in an office in front of the same computer you could be using at home.
As I said, we can work from anywhere. But where is our bliss? In personal interaction, in meeting people. For example, a friend of mine flew to Europe to meet and discuss contract details. He could have done it by phone. He could have done it online.
But the impression is different.
Exactly. he met in person, because personal meetings still provide a stronger energy exchange. Maybe the time will come when teleportation becomes available. It exists, it's real, it's possible, but our beliefs and limitations prevent us from accessing it. When we think, that can't be, because it never can, we block ourselves.
Let's imagine a distant future, business in that future. Ideally, when we're living at scale, in love, in humanity, AI works for us. Offices don't really exist. We meet to play tennis and at the same time hold a business meeting, do planning, team building, and then work effectively from anywhere in the world.
What I see now is this. There is a probable reality where we live simultaneously in the past, present, future, and other probable realities. We visit ourselves in another reality and meet ourselves physically there. We go into our past and teach ourselves. We visit friends and acquaintances in parallel, past, future, or alternate realities, communicate, sign agreements, create projects together simultaneously across multiple probable realities where past, present, and future coexist. I'm not even touching on our incarnations on other planets or in other dimensions.
Okay.
These scenarios exist. There is a probable reality where you walk down the street and meet yourself from 3 years earlier.
Honestly, when ideas or inspiration come to me, as you say, thoughts come from outside, I feel like I'm receiving a hint from myself somewhere else, maybe from the future.
There is no such thing as from the future.
Right.
There is from a probable reality.
From somewhere then.
As Seth said, if you suddenly feel like playing the saxophone or listening to the violin, here's what's happening. These realities run in parallel. Let's say you're 40 years old, and across probable realities, you're also 40. You're very close to those versions of yourself. And if somewhere you're playing the violin, because there is resonance, you suddenly want to hear a violin, or somewhere you're a singer, and you feel a powerful urge to sing, that's simply an intersection. We nourish each other across probable realities. When we brainstorm, what are we actually doing? We're checking in which probable reality we've already achieved this, already done it, and we borrow that experience, exchanging something we gained here that will be useful there. And if we do the same with other people here, especially when women accept other women, knowing that's also me, it becomes a multiplication of oneself through others, because we are all one. We are a single whole.